There are 40 people on death row in the state of Tennessee. This is part 3 of the series. Donald Millbrooks, 34 years on death row. In 1987, Millbrooks was found guilty of torturing and killing Carrick Majors, a 14-year-old. The teen's nude body was discovered in a dry creek bed in East Nashville, having been beaten, stabbed, suffocated, essayed with a stick, sliced in a X pattern on the chest, and laying beneath a mattress. At the time of the incident, Millbrooks, who was 24 years old, along with his 17-year-old wife, Tammy, and 16-year-old buddy, Roger Brewington, pursued the victim and his companions from a temporary flea market in Nashville. Majors was taken by them, who then knocked him down and pulled him into a forested location. For multiple hours, the 4'11" tall and 112 pounds victim was subjected to torment. He was forced to drink human waste. They cut an X onto his chest. He was burned, he was essayed with a stick, struck with brass knuckles, and fatally stabbed. The victim, according to Millbrooks' confession, was in tears and begged to have the opportunity to go to school and get an education. Majors, who was black, was the target of racial slurs from the white defendants. Ershawn Miller, 6 years on death row. The state of Tennessee sentenced Miller to death for killing someone during a robbery. Court filings state that Ershawn Miller shot and killed clerk Ahmad Dalai while he was robbing the bull market on Hollywood Drive in Jackson. He also fired shots at another worker who was present. Ferris Morris, 27 years on death row. In 1997, Ferris Jenner Morris Jr. was found guilty in Madison County of essaying Ragland's wife Angela in the Jackson home of the Raglands, as well as killing Charles Ragland and his 15-year-old niece Erica Hurd. In Jackson, Tennessee, Charles and Angela Ragland occupied a duplex home. Ferris Morris shared the adjacent home with his wife. Morris assured Angela he would let her go once he heard his wife in the next house. At that time, he had already committed the murders and assaulted Angela. He told her to tell the police that she had discovered her husband and cousin's body when she got home that morning. Morris cleaned his hands on whatever he had touched with a rag and told Angela not to call the police. Angela made her way to a friend's house nearby, where she was driven to the police station. Shortly after, the police discovered Morris at his house and took him into custody. The bodies of Erica Hurd and Charles Ragland were found inside the Ragland home. Charles Ragland sustained a head wound. Erica Hurd had suffered multiple beatings and stabbings. A huge butcher knife with blood traces was discovered in a living room chair, and a blood-stained steak knife was discovered under a couch. Clarence Nesbitt, 29 years on death row. Nesbitt was found guilty in the 1993 shooting death of 20-year-old Miriam Cannon in Memphis. Cannon's body was covered in burns and branding, and it looked like she had been struck on the soles of her feet with a coat hanger or something similar. 4 out of Miriam Cannon's 5 small children were there in the flat when Nesbitt, who was 19 at the time, shot her in the head. A medical examiner stated that the woman had endured phalanga, a type of torture in which she had been burned and had scratched and bruised feet before the fatal shooting. He claimed that because the torture was administered over a long length of time, she would have experienced both physical and mental agony and suffering. Harold Nichols, 34 years on death row. Nichols is incarcerated on death row for the 1988 essay and killing of Karen Pewley, a 21-year-old. Nichols was found guilty of essaying several additional women. On June 9, 2022, Nichols was scheduled to get a fatal injection, but his execution was postponed. He had previously been scheduled for lethal injection in 2020, but because of the global context and health concerns at the time, he also escaped the death penalty back then. Richard Odom, 31 years on death row. On January 16, 2008, Odom received a death sentence for the essay and killing of Minna Johnson, a 77-year-old woman, while he was evading a Mississippi murder conviction. Minna Ethel Johnson's body was discovered in the rear seat floorboard of her car in a Memphis, Tennessee parking garage on May 10, 1991. The victim was bleeding from her private parts and her lower body had been left uncovered. The victim had 2 bloody handprints on her hips and many stab wounds on her back. In testimony, Memphis Police Department Sergeant Ronnie McWilliams stated that Odom's arrest on May 13, 1991, was made possible by fingerprints discovered in the victim's vehicle. Krista Pike, 28 years on death row. She was found guilty of torturing and killing her classmate Colleen Slemmer when she was just 18 years old. Krista believed that Colleen was trying to steal her boyfriend Tedderill's ship. On January 12, 1995, Pike, Ship, Slemmer, and another friend of Pike's, Shadola Peterson, left their university dormitories to take a walk in the woods. Colleen was told that the purpose of this gathering was to reach an agreement and stop the constant fighting between them. What she didn't know was that both Pike and her boyfriend had developed an interest in the occult and satanic worship, and they had other intentions. Slammer was attacked by Pike and Ship, while Peterson served as a lookout as soon as they arrived at the remote area. In later court testimony, it was stated that Slammer was taunted, beaten, and cut over the following 30 minutes, while also having a pentagram etched into her chest. Slammer was killed when Pike finally crushed her skull with a sizable piece of asphalt. A portion of Slammer's skull was retained by Pike, and the next day she started showing it around to other students. This is what led to the group's arrest less than 36 hours later. While Pike received the death penalty, her boyfriend got life in prison with the possibility of parole, and Peterson pled guilty, but she only got probation because she became an informant. It was discovered that Krista Pike had all three major common traits between murderers: a history of childhood abuse, a mental illness, and brain damage, most probably due to prenatal alcohol exposure. If the state carries out the punishment, she will be the first female to be executed in Tennessee in more than 200 years. Gerald Powers, 25 years on death row. Powers was found guilty of aggravated robbery and first-degree criminal murder. In 1996, he was found guilty of killing Shannon Sanderson, a 25-year-old, and was later sentenced to 30 years in jail for aggravated robbery. Shannon Sanderson's highly decomposed body was found in a storage closet in the back of an abandoned house on Highway 301 in Eudora, Mississippi, on May 9, 1996. The identical clothes she had on the night she vanished were still on the body. Her jewels had vanished. Sanderson died from a single gunshot wound to the right side of her skull, according to the results of her autopsy. Upon examining the skull, it was discovered that she had also sustained at least one significant facial blow. Corino Pruitt, 16 years on death row. Following the death of Lawrence Guidroz, 79-year-old, Pruitt was found guilty of first-degree murder. In August 2005, while Guidroz was leaving an Oak Haven grocery shop, Pruitt carjacked and attacked him. Charles Rice, 22 years on death row. When Emily Branch's body was discovered in a forested location close to Bellevue and Chelsea, it had 16 stab wounds. Her body was found on June 25, 2000, after she was reported missing on June 18th. Emily's body was discovered in a densely forested area to the right of the opening, in what looked to be a dry creek bed. Her underwear was pulled down, and her white short overalls were pulled all the way down to her ankles. She had her shirt on still. Michael Rimmer, 25 years on death row. In 1997, Rimmer was found guilty of kidnapping and murdering his 45-year-old ex-girlfriend, Richie Lynn Ellsworth. Ellsworth worked as a night clerk at a motel in Memphis before going missing. Money was taken from a cash register, and her blood was discovered in a motel office. After being incarcerated for 7 years for the essay of Ellsworth, she vanished 5 months later. Richie Ellsworth's blood was the only thing that the police ever found of her. Gregory Robinson, 25 years on death row. Robinson was found guilty of giving the order for a Memphis gang to murder Vernon Green in 1997 after a fight between two rival gangs while Green was an innocent bystander. Robinson advised gang members to take him fishing, according to court filings. Police records also say that Green was brought to a park where he was repeatedly shot and abused. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.